everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Not the Worst at Knitting podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 8 spring knits I have been reaching for the most this season. I have done videos on knits that I wear in previous seasons. I've typically done it to where it's my most and least worn knits, and I've done every season but the spring at this point. And because I did one for last summer that was my most and least worn, I wanted to do something a little bit different for this spring, just because I know that spring and summer knits kind of go hand in hand. So I wanted this to focus on what I'm reaching for, not necessarily the successes and failures, but the ones that I really enjoy wearing, the ones that make sense for me in this season, and the ones that I have been reaching for the most. And so I'll talk a bit about the pattern, the yarn that I chose, and why I like it for this particular season. And then if there was anything I modified or wish I could change, I will mention that. Just so you know, I am a 34-inch bust. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I live in Western Washington. So we definitely have more of a moderate climate. So spring here can kind of range from like 40 to 60 degrees in any given day. It can be raining, it can be cloudy, it can be sunny. We actually are having a beautiful sunny day right now. We've got like a little bit of cloud cover, but I can see blue sky and the sun is out. So this is one of those perfect spring days. I think it's in the 60s today, like it's actually like 63 degrees, which is kind of your perfect spring weather. So that feels really good for a podcast like this. So I hope this is helpful. I just thought it would be fun to chat about the spring knits that I really love, and a lot of these I will wear into the summer here because it just makes sense with this climate. Also, I'm gonna change it up a little bit where I normally flip through where I'm wearing each one when I'm talking about it, but this time around I'm going to show it first so you can actually see what it looks like to hold, see the construction and the drape and whatever, and then I will wear it while I chat about the rest of it because I just think that might be helpful to see both. You might be able to see off screen, I have a stack of my patterns here. I have a few more over here. Patterns, they're projects really, my finished objects. And then I have my little basket of yarn here. I tried to grab all the yarn that I use for these projects. For the most part, a couple of them I didn't have anything left over. So I can chat a bit about the yarn I chose and why I like it for this item. Okay, so without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get started with my number one. We're going to chat mostly about short sleeve tops, just because I like knit tops that are short sleeve in these transitional months where they can still be a little bit warm, but you have the short sleeve, so you're mostly warming your core and you're not overheated all the way through. But I do have one cardigan near the end and 2 accessories afterward. So I just thought it was kind of a nice balance because spring you're still wearing a lot of transitional items and accessories are still okay because it might start out really cold in the morning and then by the afternoon when the sun comes out it's much warmer and you'll take that accessory or layer off. Okay, so we will start with number one, which is my Everyday Attitude tee by Susanne Sommer. Now, if you watch me frequently, then you will have seen that I wore this last episode. This is definitely a springtime knit for me. I mean, you can tell by the color choices. I love this tee because it just feels like spring. It has a really nice drape to it thanks to the yarn that I chose. And the other feature about this, I'll pull that down a little bit, is the construction of the neckline, which I find really, really interesting. So I just want to kind of show that detail before I put it on. You can just see it's straight on the back, but you get this really nice kind of chevron detail on the shoulders, and then it just sort of splits into like a straight sleeve. Okay, now I'm wearing it so I can actually chat about the pattern. So this is $8.09 on Ravelry, and it's a really interesting pattern. I really enjoyed knitting this up. I will start by saying that I did not come close to meeting gauge, and I made several changes because of that. So I knit the size 1 to kind of get somewhere between the size 1 and 2 fit. I think I was looking for about a size 2 fit, and when all was said and done, I think it kind of went in between those two sizes. The pattern recommends using a US 2.5 or 3 millimeter needle. I actually had to use a US 5 or a 3.75 millimeter needle to get the gauge that I liked with the yarn that I used. And I do think part of that was the yarn that I used. So she recommends using kind of like a sock weight yarn, like a light fingering, I believe. I wanted to use scraps of some yarn that I had used for a previous project, which was Blue Sky Fibers Metalico. And I had all of these colors. These were the colors that I had left over that I wanted to use. I also had a gold color, but in the striping sequence, I actually felt like I looked like a Lifesavers wrapper. And so the gold had to go. I played around a lot with figuring out a nice sequence that I liked, where it wasn't quite as predictable, and it gave me colors that I thought looked really nice together. And I love this yarn. So this is Metalico, which is a sport weight yarn. I believe it is, let me just double check. Yeah, it's 50% baby alpaca and 50% silk. So it's really beautiful. You get this really nice shine. You can see the shine on that yarn from the silk. And then you get a crazy amount of drape, which really is from the silk and the alpaca. Like it's so incredibly drapey. And yeah, you can see, I'm gonna stand up and you can just see how drapey it is. It's just really, it feels like a really nice fabric on my body. So the reason I count this as more of a spring knit than a summer knit, I think I can wear this early summer and it's okay, but it has 50% alpaca in it. And so that means that you're gonna have a little bit more warmth than usual. Now, I do think it was a nice balance because it also does have 50% silk, and silk is typically a cooling fiber. So I do think it makes a really nice balance. But for me, just with the alpaca in general, it gives it a slight fuzziness, a slight halo. So I think it adds just enough warmth for this kind of weather for me. I think it's just the perfect springtime knit. So let's talk about modifications, because I did make some. A lot of that was due to my gauge, due to the yarn that I chose. Like I said, I went up several needle sizes just to get kind of the fabric that I liked with this yarn. Anything smaller than that, it just felt really tight. And also the shirt was very stiff, like the fabric was too stiff. And I didn't want this to be stiff. I wanted it to be loose and drapey. So this pattern recommends that you use 2 colors. You've got your main color, which ends up also being your collar and your hem color. And then you have one other color that you're supposed to use. And so that makes, when you are adding more than one color to a 2-color striped drop shoulder sort of garment, the shaping on the front and back needed to be modified significantly so I could have the pattern repeat properly and still have the right amount of short rows in the back, the right amount of length for the armhole. And so I actually increased the front and the back quite a bit. 1, because I was worried that the armhole was going to be too tight, and 2, just because I had to, just for the color sequence. So I added, I think, an additional 2 sets of the color sequence in the back, and then an additional 1 in the front to help with that balance, because you always want a little bit more fabric in the back for the shoulders and the upper back. So that was the main modification I made outside of just, you know, changing my needle size. Otherwise, I followed the pattern. I love the slip stitch detail. I think it's really, really nice. It gives you a nice seam on either side. And then you have a fold over hem on the bottom, which I think looks really sharp. So I'm really comfortable in this top. I love the way it looks. It also, I mentioned this last video, but it's much simpler than you expect it to be. It looks like it's going to be quite complicated because of the shoulder shaping, but you really work everything all at once. You work it flat for a little bit, which helps with the garter stitch. It's actually once you join under the arms that it slows down because you are purling every other row, but it's really not that big of a deal. I also really love the curled hem, the curled edges on the collar and the sleeves, because I think from far away, it gives the appearance of an I-cord, but you're literally just picking up the stitches and then knitting. You just knit several rows and then bind off, and you get this really nice curled edge. So I think it's a really clever pattern. I love these shoulders. I think that's really the highlight for most people, is this chevron shoulder detail. It's just a really clever design and I really love it. So the pattern comes in 9 sizes. It recommends about 7 to 12 inches or 18 to 30 centimeters of positive ease. I didn't do that much just because I didn't want a ton of ease on this. I wanted a little bit of ease, which is why I was aiming for the size 2, somewhere between the 1 and 2. The finished bust sizes for this pattern ranges from 40 to 73 inches or 101 to 185 centimeters. I would definitely recommend this pattern. I think it's a really fun one to knit. I am planning to make another one of this, maybe with some of my scrap sock yarn. I had seen one pattern on Ravelry that I still think about every time I wear this. I believe her main color was just a solid black yarn, and then her stripe color was a highly variegated, really bright sock yarn. And it was funny because it was definitely pooling, but because it's every other stripe and it's garter stitch, it gave this really, really cool appearance that I think works so well in this sort of pattern, in a way where most times I would steer away from variegated yarns in a garment. I actually think this is a really good one for that, if you just want that as an alternating color. So I think I'm waiting to find the right yarn for it, but I do think that's something I will probably do in the future. So definitely recommend this. All right, next up, we'll just go ahead and swap. I'll wear what I'm wearing and chat about the next one and then change into that one because I think that just makes the most sense. The next one on my list, this is a pattern of my own. This is the Prismatic Reflection Summer Tee. So this is all one pattern. The pattern that I made, actually I have it up here as well. It's the Prismatic Reflection Sweater, but I really wanted a summer tee version. And I wanted to do it in a much lighter weight yarn and not do a fold over collar and have something that could be very casual and easy. Okay, so for this summer version that I wanted to do, I obviously wanted a much lighter weight yarn. This pattern is a DK weight, and in both of the sweater versions that I made, you're holding 2 strands together, so you're holding a fingering weight yarn with a lace weight surrey. And this one, obviously, I did not want a surrey or a fuzzy yarn in this, but I still really wanted to play with holding 2 yarns together because one of the things I really enjoyed about this pattern, which I have another version of the sweater, is doing marled striping throughout, just having these fun little bars of striping to kind of offset the cabled effect. And so I really wanted to still achieve that in a way that was cool enough for me to wear in the warmer months, but something that I could still have a lot of fun with. Just because I'm doing a sort of like summer weight yarn, cotton colors, I didn't want it to be drab, I still wanted bright. And I discovered that Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino had some really fun colors. So I went down the rabbit hole quite a bit. I ordered one ball of several colors that I really liked, and just to kind of see what colors I would end up going with, I did a whole swatch on marling them all. So I ended up holding the main color, which is the white, alongside each of the other colors to make the stripes. And I really enjoyed the fabric of this. So like I said, this is Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. It is 70% organic cotton and 30% merino. And I actually think that's a really nice balance. You're getting mostly cotton, so it's very light, very breathable, but you're getting just a little bit of that merino. So it's soft, it's got a little bit of bounce back, and it doesn't have that rough quality that you typically expect from a cotton yarn. Also, this was a joy to work with. It didn't hurt my hands. Before this, I have not found a cotton yarn that I like working with. I have since found a couple other summer weight yarns that I'm enjoying, but this one, I do think the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino might be my favorite summer weight yarn. I just think it's a really great yarn, but there are some properties to be aware of, so I'll chat about that. I used the colors Cream, that's the main color. The next color was Soft Mint, and then Elephant Blue, and then lime yellow, which this one is so fun. At first I was doing an even darker blue down here, but I didn't like the way it was marling with the white stripe, and then the motif was getting lost, and also it was losing kind of its fun effect. And I really think this little pop of lime yellow just sets it off, and I love it. And it makes it really nice for spring as well, spring and summer, because you've got these really bright, vibrant colors. And I just really like wearing a lot of vibrant colors for spring if I can. Okay, so about the pattern. So I knit the size 2, and this pattern recommends that you use the US 5 or 3.75 needles and US 7 or 4.5 millimeters. So obviously the bigger one is for the body and the smaller needle is for the ribbing. I used the same needles as I did for both of these and was still able to meet gauge by holding 2 strands of this fingering weight yarn together to make a DK. So the difference is the modifications, if you will, that I made for this. The original sweater pattern, it has a folded over neckband, and then obviously it's got long sleeves and pretty deep ribbing. For this one, I chose a much more shallow, shorter neckband. Obviously, I cut off the sleeves, so these are short sleeves. They stop right after the motif. And then very shallow ribbing here as well. And so this came out exactly how I wanted. I really, really love it. It's loose, it's drapey, it's light, it's very cool. I don't feel overheated when I wear it. It's very casual, which I really enjoy, because I was going for like a very much a t-shirt with this. I didn't want this to be a fancy dress-up tee. I wanted this to be a very casual t-shirt, because I mean, it's got like giant bright stripes down the middle. Like, it's not exactly like something I'm wearing to the office, right? So this just kind of checks all the boxes for me. Now, what I was mentioning before about the properties of the yarn, and this is something to definitely be aware of if you are thinking about using knitting for olive cotton merino. The way that it blocks out, it basically stretches significantly horizontally and shrinks vertically. So you can see that this is quite big on me. It definitely grew outward and shrunk up a bit. Now, I actually really like how this fits, so I don't mind the ease, but I have been thinking that I might increase the length a little bit, just because I don't mind having a cropped tee, but I do think maybe having like at least another inch or so on this would be nice, just because if I'm not wearing this with super high-waisted pants, then, you know, I'm a little worried that I'm gonna show some belly. And so I do think I might add a little bit of length to it this year, but we'll see. So far, it's been fine, and I haven't really had any issues with it, so we'll see if I get around to doing that. And one more thing, so this pattern comes in 9 sizes. It's recommended to have 3 to 4 inches or 7 to 10 centimeters of positive ease. So the finished bust size for this, it ranges from a 34 to 64.75 inch or 85 to 162 centimeter finished bust. And like I mentioned before, this pattern has both sweater and tee instructions. One other thing to mention about this pattern before we move on, this is a top-down raglan construction, and one of the things I really enjoy about it is that it has a slip stitch raglan which plays off of the slip stitch cabling that you do throughout to mimic the motif. And I just really enjoy that detail. I think it's really nice, and plus, who doesn't like to knit a very basic raglan? Okay, next up, number 3 on our list. You have probably heard of this pattern. This is the Moonset Tee by Ozetta. This is a drop shoulder, it's a drop shoulder tee with a V-neck, a really nice V-neck and short sleeves. Okay. So I am wearing the size 2 of this. I think I used the recommended needles, which is US 3 or 3.25 millimeter and US 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter. Actually, now that I say that, so the US 3 or 3.25 millimeter was for the body, and that is the recommended needle size. But I went down a needle size for the ribbing, and that's because I did ribbing because the pattern does not call for ribbing. So we'll get into that in a little bit. So her recommended yarn for this, I believe, might have been Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. I think that's what she recommended. And then I think that she just has you leave the edges raw. I don't even think it's an I-cord. I think you just finish it and it does a little bit of a curl. I could not do that with the yarn I chose. And that is because I used Lana Grossa Seta Mulberry, which is a 35% mulberry silk, 35% baby alpaca, and 30% merino. So with the baby alpaca and the merino in this, what ended up happening was I was getting, the fabric was just curling a ton. Like it wasn't like a cute little curl, it was like just rolling. And it wasn't a good look. So I did have to modify it by adding ribbing to the sleeves and to the body. But I am really happy with that. I don't mind it. I don't think it's something you look at and you're like, ugh. I think it works really well for this. So this was yarn that I had in stash. My friend started knitting this up and she actually went out and bought yarn for it. I think she bought the pure silk, if I remember correctly. And I got FOMO. I'd been seeing everybody knitting it, so I decided to go get the pattern as well. But I was looking through my yarn and I saw that I had this and it was exactly a match in terms of gauge. And when I did the gauge swatch, it was perfect. So I decided to go with it. But obviously, you know, a pure silk garment is going to feel very different than a silk, baby alpaca, and merino wool garment. And I knew that. I knew the risk involved in that, but I just thought it would be really nice to have a tee in this fabric. The yarn felt really lovely. It has a really nice halo to it. And plus, I already had it in stash. And it was a good way for me to try out the pattern and say like, hey, if I really like this pattern, I can always knit another version in a cooler yarn. So that is how this guy came to be. And it feels beautiful on the skin. Like this yarn is gorgeous. I will say, I think this yarn might be discontinued now. So I kind of feel bad talking about it, but you might still be able to find some on Ravelry, I'm not sure. The reason I actually had so much of this in stash was because one of my local yarn stores had a big sale and all of this was on sale in 3 different colors that I took home with me. Yes, so I bought 3 colors of this, 2 of which I still have to find projects for. And I think this is really a great top for this weather. It's another one where it's gonna keep me very warm, but I have short sleeves, so I don't feel crazy hot in it. Like I feel like I could go take a walk right now in this top and I think I would feel really good. I could go over by the water where it's much cooler, and I don't think this time of year I would be terribly uncomfortable in this, and maybe a light jacket. So this is perfect for me for springtime. As for the size, if I didn't mention, I am wearing the size 2. This pattern comes in 9 sizes and it recommends 4 inches or 10 centimeters of positive ease. And the sizes range from 36 to 63 inches or 91 to 160 centimeters for the finished bust. And it's a really interesting construction. So I'm gonna, if you can, yeah, you can see the shoulder seams. The collar, obviously, I think is the main feature here. So you start by working the back, you build out the back, you pick up stitches for the front, right, and left shoulders, you build those out, and you also work the collar at the same time. And then when you're ready to join, you actually join this together to make this really beautiful folded detail. And then you just finish the body, pick up the sleeves, you know, that whole thing. This is one of those where I think this pattern scared a lot of people at first because it seemed really complicated, and it takes some time because this is basically, I think this is a fingering weight yarn. I mean, you know, you can see, yes, it's a very thin yarn. I believe it's a fingering weight. I don't even think it's sport weight. So it took a while, but it's very much worth it. And I think the really nice thing about fingering weight gauge on t-shirts, especially warmer weather garments, is that you have a really nice drape regardless, and it just looks really clean. So I'm really happy with this. I love wearing this in these transitional seasons. It's been so perfect for me to wear this time of year, and I'm getting a lot of wear out of it. And also I really like this yarn. It's quite soft. But it's interesting though, this is one of those yarns where I actually wonder if I had knit a whole sweater in this, would it be too warm on me? So I actually think this yarn is perfect for a t-shirt. Also, if I didn't mention, this pattern is $6.50 on Ravelry. Oh man, I think we're flying through these and we're already on number 4. We're halfway through. So number 4 on my list is the Magnolia Summer by Camilla Vad. And this is the Magnolia patterns. It's a kind of a series of patterns that Camilla Vad has. And I'm sure you're familiar with at least one of them. I've done this, which is the Magnolia, which has the lace motif at the bottom. And then I've also done the Magnolia Bloom, which is the chunkier sweater that has a lace motif at the top. So this is a round yoke sweater. The pattern comes with a long sleeve and a short sleeve version. And in the pattern, so the pattern itself, I think is just Magnolia, like Magnolia sweater, Magnolia pullover, something like that. And then after you scroll through half the pattern, then it has different instructions for the Magnolia Summer. It's pretty similar. There are just a few modifications for it. I think it's just the neckline and the sleeves. But this is a top-down round yoke sweater with just a little bit of ribbing on the collar and then this beautiful lace detail at the bottom that goes into the ribbing. So what I love about this, I actually really love the color of this. I also really like the construction. I am not typically one for a lot of round yokes. I don't always love the way a round yoke looks on me. Obviously, some of that has to do with the depth. If you're doing a color work yoke, sometimes if that color work expands, then you're gonna kind of have this weird, you know, sort of round bell that comes all the way down with really deep armholes. And sometimes that can look nice, but sometimes it looks a little weird. I think this has a really nice yoke. I really enjoyed how the increases were placed. I will admit Camilla Vad's patterns are not holding your hand. So I do think there are certain places where it just kind of says to spread them evenly or make sure that you're not overlapping your increases. So you do have to maybe do a little bit of math to figure that out. But it's nothing crazy. And so for this pattern, I used the recommended needles, which is a US 4 or 3.5 millimeter and a US 6 or a 4 millimeter needle. Larger is for the body, smaller is for the ribbing. The yarn that I used is actually Rowan felted tweed. Now, this is the one thing where if I were to do this again, this is what I would change. It was something that I wasn't expecting. Working with this yarn was lovely. It's beautiful, soft, fluffy yarn. I wanted this to be a transitional garment that I could wear. I knew that this was a warmer yarn. I knew that this was a woolly yarn, and I was fully okay with this being sort of a transitional garment. And when I saw it in the store, I thought it was really beautiful. I thought the tweed was really nice, and it just felt super fuzzy. So I was like, this will be great for this. I love it. Let's go with it. It was lovely to knit. After blocking and me trying it on, I will warn, it's pretty itchy. It's a prickly kind of yarn. And I'll admit, I am a little more sensitive than most. I cannot do mohair. I also can't do like a lot of Peruvian Highland wool. I find that like, what is it, Knit Picks Wool of the Andes? I cannot wear that. I've knit a sweater and a shawl in that, and even the shawl with something underneath is too itchy for me. I can't wear it. So I will fully admit that I might be a little bit sensitive, but this, it has to be cold or cooler in order for me to wear this. So that's the one thing that I just wanted to kind of mention. Now in weather, maybe not for today where it is actually 60 degrees, but in the cooler months of spring or early morning where it's still kind of in the 40s and 50s, this is fine. I can wear this with no jacket and I'm very comfortable. I love the longer short sleeve. I think it's a really nice look where it kind of hits just above the elbow. And the patterning, that lace down here, it's really gorgeous. It's a really beautiful, very feminine silhouette and very feminine motif. So love the pattern, have no complaints about that. I will mention there was a little bit of errata, which I think has since been fixed on the Ravelry page. The size that I knit, I think I knit the 3rd size because I have listed that I knit a small. And with the summer version, there is a XXS and an XS and then a small. So I knit somewhere, I guess, in the middle. The one thing is the size range isn't great on this. So it looks like it ranges from 35.25 to 51 inches or 88 to 130 centimeters. So this, I think part of it is this pattern came out a few years ago, and maybe it was before a lot of people were going a little bit more size inclusive. So that is one thing to note. I'm not sure if maybe she has since updated her sizing, so might be something to look at first before you buy this. But I do love the finished item. I think this is a really beautiful top. This is actually one that I consider to be a little bit more on the dressy side. Like I can dress this up and feel like I look really nice and presentable in this. Again, I love the way the yarn looks. I should also mention it's called Bottle Green, but it's definitely more of a tealy blue. Like I think this is showing up pretty accurate on camera. Beautiful color, gorgeous. Really like this color on my skin tone. So it's one that I do love, but I will say that I will probably never work with Rowan felted tweed again, just for my own personal itch factor. But yeah, this is probably something I would knit again in a different yarn. I actually wonder what this would be like in more of a summery yarn. I believe this is a sport weight yarn, so I'm curious what it might be like in something like a pure silk or even the cotton merino. The cotton merino might be a little too casual. I will mention that with the Knitting for All of Cotton Merino for some reason there's something about that yarn where it feels more casual. It feels more t-shirty. And I don't know if that's just some weird misconception I have in my head about cotton yarns and cotton fabrics, but that's just how I feel about it with everything I've knit. What I'm gonna chat about next, I swatched an option for this in the cotton merino and I just didn't feel like it was giving the right vibes because this is not a casual tee. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that if you feel the same about the cotton merino or if I'm just talking crazy. All right, number 5 on the list. I'm considering this one a bonus because the pattern is not out yet, but it is in testing and it will be out soon. But it is, if I'm being honest, it is something that I am wearing this season. It feels really good to wear this time of year, and that is my Anacortes Pullover short sleeve version. This is a top-down raglan. It's a 2x2 broken rib, and then the raglan is a 1x1 twisted rib that carries into the collar and then also carries down the sides into the bottom hem. This is a pattern that I did originally as a full-scale sweater pullover with long sleeves, and I loved it so much I knew immediately that I wanted a short sleeve version. And here we are. I have to say I really love this. I know I might be a little bit biased, but I've been really excited about this pattern. I can't wait for it to come out. I love the long sleeve and the short sleeve equally. I think a big thing was I was working on the long sleeve one because it's something that you can knit up for this upcoming winter, but I was thinking to myself, well, I want something I can also wear now. And so that's how the short sleeve came to be. So this pattern includes both the long sleeve and the short sleeve versions. And I am wearing the size 2, and I used a US 3 or 3.25 millimeter and a US 5 or 3.75 millimeter needle for this. So the yarn that I used for the short sleeve version, this is a yarn that I just found out about a few months ago and have quickly become obsessed with. I have knit, 3 different garments in this yarn now, a couple of which I will be debuting soon. And this is HiKoo Sueno. This yarn, it's an 80% merino superwash and a 20% viscose from bamboo. So it's essentially superwash merino and bamboo to make this really lovely yarn. If I have to do any sort of wool in a summery or springtime garment, I typically am going to choose merino just because merino is soft, it's a little bit more breathable. Also, yeah, it's not going to be prickly or rough on my skin to where there's something about those woolier wools, those hardy wools, where if I'm at all warm, it's just gonna feel like my skin is on fire. Whereas something like this, I just don't feel that way. And the bamboo gives it this really beautiful shine. Really nice drape. I mean, it just drapes so beautifully. And I just think the shine of it really shows off that stitch definition really, really well. So yeah, after I did my sweater version, I swatched several different yarns because I was originally thinking I wanted to go cotton. And I swatched 2 cotton yarns, one of which was the Knitting for All of Cotton Merino, and it just felt so casual, and that was not the look I was going for. So then I decided to swatch with the Sueno, and immediately I was like, this is the one, this is how it has to be. So this is a DK weight yarn, but I will note that it's a thin DK. It's definitely bordering on sport weight, and you can kind of tell by the needle size that I chose as well. It worked out because I met the same gauge as what I used for the sweater version, which was also, it was giving me more of like a sport weight gauge. So I think that really does well with the ribbing. There's something about broken ribbing that I love so much more than regular ribbing, and I think it's because it's just more subtle. There's something about your standard ribbing on a full garment where I feel like it can give you that sort of like scrunched effect, or like it's meant to be hugging your body, or it just feels very severe. And with the broken rib, after you block it, it kind of stretches to what it needs to be and you're not pulling back in. And I think it just gives a really beautiful look. And I think the details of having the pearl bumps every other row, it just makes it a really fun texture. And I just really love it. I love the stitch definition. I love how it looks with this yarn. Just incredible. So this pattern comes in 9 sizes. I am wearing size 2. I recommend that you wear about 2 to 4 inches or 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease. It's definitely meant to be one that's a little bit more form-fitting. I consider this to be a little bit more of like a nice, like a dressier top. I think you can dress it up or dress it down, but again, this isn't like the Prismatic Reflection where that is meant to be like a casual throw around t-shirt where you wear sandals and walk out the door. This is like a little bit more upscale, I guess. Put that away. And so the pattern ranges from a 34.5 to a 63-inch bust, or 86.5 to 157.5 centimeter bust. And yeah, so that is the Anacortes Pullover coming soon, and that's my bonus. This is basically it for my tees that I have been wearing in these beautiful months. And next up, we'll chat about my cardigan. All right, the t-shirt's back on for this, so I can eventually pop the cardigan on over it. The next up on my list for springtime is my Field Day cardigan. This is another pattern by Ozetta. This is a drop shoulder cardigan. It is actually constructed almost identically to the Moonset tee up until you get to joining essentially in the round. You're not ever actually joining completely in the round because this is knit flat, but you construct the upper portion, the upper body, almost identically, and then you work it as you would a cardigan. So the button band is worked at the same time, and this is meant to be quite an oversized cardigan. All right, so if you have watched previous episodes of mine several months back when I was working on this, it was a bit of a saga. I actually had almost finished this and determined that it was just too big on me and completely started over. Basically, I knit my swatch was at gauge, and then I just worked on it, no problem, didn't really think about it. And as I was working on it, and I think I'd gotten past the second button, was looking at it and thinking, you know, this looks kind of big. And so I decided to block it. And it turned out that my gauge was way off. So my goal was to achieve the size 2. And so I was knitting for the size 2. And after blocking, it was fitting exactly as the size 3. Which I felt was just a little bigger than I wanted to go for this. So I started over and went down to a smaller needle size than what she recommends. I went down 1 needle size. I used a US 6 or a 4mm needle instead of I believe she was using a 7 or a 4.5mm needle. And with that, I was able to achieve better gauge. It's just one of those things where I think sometimes, especially with something like a cardigan where you're just knitting the whole thing flat, as you're knitting more and the fabric grows, you've got a lot more weight that's pulling it. And I found this to be the case several times with larger garments that I knit, that even if I have a decently big swatch, once you have the garment, the gauge is sometimes a bit bigger than you were originally planning. So it was a bummer, but we got there in the end. I essentially decided to knit up the size 1 to achieve the fit of the size 2, which I got pretty much perfectly. And I couldn't be more thrilled. I really enjoyed, clearly I enjoyed knitting this because I was okay basically starting completely over. I wanted this so bad in my wardrobe that I started it over right away. I didn't even put it away in the closet, like in its little angry corner. I just got right to it. And yeah, as a DK weight pattern, I didn't have any yarn left over, which was good. I will say, if I could, I probably wish my sleeves were a little bit longer, but I used every little bit of yarn I had left. So it is what it is. It's fine. I think it's okay. They're kind of bracelet length, which it's a cardigan, especially for weather like this. It's perfect. I find that I always do like a French tuck with this, with a t-shirt, and I really, really love this cardigan a lot. So this pattern comes in 9 sizes. It recommends 8 inches or 20 centimeters of positive ease. The finished bust measurement ranges from 30 to 60 inches or 76 to 152 centimeters. I really recommend this. It's a great cardigan, just really nice, oversized, drop shoulder, standard cardigan. So from here, I just have a couple of accessories just because it's springtime. You can still wear these like neck accessories and I still think it's okay. You may not wear it all day. It might be something you just put on in the morning when you're running errands, and then you can take it right off when you get a little bit warm. So the first one on my list, this is my Wildflower Bloom cowl, which is a little infinity cowl that I came up with a couple of years ago. I was very inspired by the flowers blooming in my garden, hence the name. And I don't know, it was one of those things where I saw it and I just had this idea in my mind that I needed a cowl with flowers all over, and I wanted the flowers to feel very organic. I didn't want them to feel boxy. So I decided to go with a much smaller gauge, which meant a bit of a thinner yarn, a bit of a smaller needle size, just to achieve these really nice organic flowers. All right, so I'm really hoping I didn't just smear lipstick all over the inside of this cowl, but it's fine. We're not gonna worry about that right now. What I enjoyed most about this, there's a couple of things. One, I mean, the yarn. The yarn is, I love this yarn. So this is Cashmere 16 Fine, and the breakdown of it, it's 10% polyamide, 10% cashmere, and 80% virgin wool. So it's just a little bit of cashmere, but that 10% really goes a long way. This yarn is beautiful. It's like a little chainette, and one thing that I love about this yarn is it is very elastic. Like it's got quite a stretch to it. And what that meant was an even tighter gauge than you would expect. So this is listed as a sport weight yarn, but this is fully like a fingering weight when you knit it up. It's just such an elastic yarn that once you knit it up in color work, it's like you don't even see the stitches anymore. You know, it's got, you can see there the detail. It's got a little bit of a halo because it's definitely a fuzzy yarn. And just the way that the yarn kind of like pulls itself back together without any sort of puckering. It's beautifully soft, and I think it's a really gorgeous yarn for color work. You just need to be okay with a very tight gauge. And that's really what I was going for here, and it worked out beautifully. Because it was such a tight gauge, even with the needles, I was using a US 6 or a 4mm. With this yarn, it still achieved quite a tight gauge just because of that elastic nature. And so this is just, it's a very small cowl. It's not meant to be one that you wrap double. I wanted it to just be very small and feminine and easy. It just feels really nice in these kind of transitional springtime days where you know, I don't want a big drapey item around my neck in this sort of weather because I might warm up throughout the day. This feels like a little bit of a smaller footprint, which I really love. And I just think it's really springy with these beautiful flowers and these beautiful colors. So the colors here, I believe you can still get this yarn. When I looked, it looks like it's still available, which is great. I really want to work with this yarn more because it's so lovely. They don't have names as far as I could find. So I believe the blue is just called 41 and then the white is just 9. So that is these two together. I've been holding on to these because I've been thinking about doing like a headband or fingerless gloves or something with what I have left. I really, really want to use the rest of this yarn because it's absolutely delightful. Last but not least, I couldn't leave a springtime knits video without at least talking about one shawl. I don't have a lot of shawls in my wardrobe. I think I have 4 technically, only really 2 of which I wear, but this is definitely one of the ones that I wear. This is the Ziggy Shawl by Locatelli. It's got a really nice wingspan on it, and it's very, very simple. Okay, so I'm trying to put this on and not mess with it too much. I feel like with shawls, you really have to fiddle with them to get kind of the right fit and drape for what you're going for. I'm just trying to do like more of that bandana style where you kind of have that one little triangle here and a little bit there, but you get the point. Anyway, so this is the Ziggy Shawl by Locatelli. It's a very, very simple shawl. It's just several rows of garter stitch and then several rows of a very simple lace panel, and you just repeat those all the way down, and then you finish it off with a picot edge. It looks like I could probably use another good blocking on this. I will say, because this is a lace shawl, when you are done with this, it's recommended you block this with not even the blocking pins, but like the rods or whatever they're called, basically those giant pieces of metal that you run through the whole thing to just stretch it out and pull out that picot edge, which I did. And it's been a while since I've done that because it's a little bit of a pain to do, but it is worth it because it really opens up that last panel of lace and it looks really nice, especially with the picot edge. The yarn I used for this was Primrose Yarn Co. Ultimate Sock in the color Havana, which is so, so pretty. It has all these little flecks. It's like a beige yarn, and it has all these little flecks of pink and purple in it. And I thought it worked really, really nicely in this shawl. This is like firmly a springtime wear for me. It's one of those things where like if we're going out, if we're going on a road trip or anywhere, I will just grab this, throw it in the car. If I'm chilly, I will put it on in some sort of way. If I'm hot, I just take it off and throw it in the back seat, and it's just easy. It's just so, so easy. And you know, it's just a sock yarn. So I think it's like a 75-25 merino nylon. So you get a nice amount of stretch and drape. You also, it's never too hot. So I think it works really nicely in this shawl. And the color is so perfect for springtime. And it's a really nice, I really enjoyed knitting up this shawl, especially you're working in garter stitch, so you're never purling, and then lace, the lace is super easy. I actually really love knitting lace. One of my favorite things about knitting lace is that it looks really complicated, but it's not, it's so easy. A lot of times it's just increases and decreases and you get these really lovely motifs out of it. So this is just another accessory that I really love to wear this time of year. This is definitely one of those more casual ones where you don't really have to think about your outfit too much. You're just kind of throwing it in and using it however you might. I mean, even if I didn't want to wear it in that bandana sort of way, I could wear it in your more traditional way, and it works really nicely as just a little less than a blanket, you know, but enough to keep your shoulders warm. And it's still, like, even draped like this, I think it still looks really nice. Like it's a very, very nice looking shawl. So I would recommend this. I would recommend this pattern. Locatelli writes beautiful patterns, which I'm sure you're already aware of. But yeah, if I had to recommend one shawl, this would be the one I would recommend. There's one modification that I made, and that was by necessity, not by choice. The pattern recommended 2 skeins of yarn. The yarn that I used, it was just the yardage was slightly less. And so I realized halfway through the final lace border that it was not going to be long enough. You can see, I think the final lace border was still supposed to be the same width. But I ended up cutting it in half, or maybe even less than half, just so I would have enough yarn to bind off. And it ended up that I didn't even have enough yarn to finish the bind off. Thankfully, I had saved all of the ties from the skeins of yarn, like, you know, the ties that you pull off when you're winding the yarn up. Fortunately, the ties were, they were also dyed the same color, and I held on to them just in case. And so what I ended up having to do in the last portion of the bind off was magic knot all of those together to give me enough to do the edge. And fortunately, because it's a picot edge, you don't really see the knots, and that was lucky. And plus, when you're wearing it, you're not really noticing that anyway. So I won at Yarn Chicken, but just barely, and even then, you know, it was risky. But this is, yeah, even just like looking at it in the viewfinder, I really love this shawl. It's just a really very elegant but very basic shawl, and I love it. Okay, well, those are my 8 most grabbed for items that I've been wearing this spring. Some of those I plan to wear into the summer. Some of those I will probably transition out as the weather gets a little bit warmer. I do love every single one of these, and I feel like all of these garments and accessories are ones that I just grab for all the time. They're ones I've worn so much already and fully intend to wear over the next couple of months. So definitely let me know your thoughts. I'd love to know if you have any feedback on the yarns that I used or the patterns. If there's any patterns that you've seen that you think I would like, I'd love to hear that. If there are any yarns that you would recommend that I try, definitely let me know. I'm always trying to dabble more into the kind of spring and summer yarn options that play with different fibers outside of your typical animal fibers. So yeah, if you've got any good recommendations on that, definitely let me know. But thank you so much for watching. If you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram, Ravelry, and Blue Sky. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thanks again so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.